This is the Art of Network Engineering podcast. In this podcast, we'll explore tools, technologies, and talented people. We aim to bring you information to expand your skill sets and toolbox and share the stories of fellow network engineers.
Alright, so here's the scenario. You've been preparing for this night for weeks. Your change plan, peer-reviewed. Your maintenance window, approved. And you've labbed up the scenario no less than 47 times, being successful in every attempt. Now, here we are. It's a dark and stormy night, and ding, change time. You get logged into that remote router, navigate to the uplink interface, when boom goes a clap of thunder. Your puppy stirs awake just in time to see your cat drinking from the pup's water bowl. Well, clearly, them's his fighting words, so the dog up and bounds for the cat. Your cat seems to give a slight smirk and darts for your office, jumps on your desk, and ever so gracefully, as if the cat cheekily knew exactly what it was doing, pawed on the keys, S-H-U-T, enter. Suddenly, your darkness befalls your soul because that is your only uplink on this router. The site is 50 miles away, and you're already in your stretchy pants for the evening. What do you do? Stay tuned to find out that answer and more on this episode of The Art of Network Engineering.
Welcome to the Art of Network Engineering. Thank you, Tim, for that episode or for that intro. This episode is sponsored by OpenGear, providing secure remote management of your critical network infrastructure, and we thank OpenGear so much for their sponsorship of the Art of Network Engineering podcast. I am AJ Murray at No Blinky Blinky, and I am joined tonight by Dan Richards.
Howdy.
How you doing, Dan?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. Yourself?
Mr. Howdy Packet. I'm doing well.
Yes,
I'm doing well.
Howdy Packet.
He's working on a little branding.
Maybe.
Can't wait to see it. Andy, how you doing?
Hi.
Nice.
Hello, AJ.
That's what's going on over there.
Just
okay,
for the people listening, Andy has OpenGear socks on his hands, and he's like making them like puppets. It would be the puppet.
That is worth going to our YouTube channel
for sure.
to watch that. That is a great use of sponsored socks. Tim, how you doing?
I am well, AJ. Thanks for asking. I'm excited to get going here. How are you, sir?
I am so much better after hearing your intro. The feedback on your intros is stellar. The fans love it. I hope you can keep that up. So no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all.
Got to bring the goofy.
You do it well. Our guest tonight is Dan Baxter. He's SE manager with OpenGear. Dan, how are you doing this evening? And thanks for joining us.
I'm awesome. I'm doing well. Thanks. I'm really happy to be here.
We are super excited to have you. And in just a few minutes, we will jump into all things Dan Baxter and OpenGear. But before we do that, we got to go over the wins. Andy, can I get a goat scream, please? After what you said last week, I didn't want to take it away from you.
Thank you, AJ.
I will let you do the goat scream exclusively unless you're not here, then I'll do it.
You're a good man.
This week, winning is Quietriot, our buddy Quietriot from the Discord. He finished his associate's degree in IT and networking, also from DeVry. A lot of talk of DeVry in the Discord the past few weeks. So
Okay.
Congratulations.
So he got his degree at DeVry?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes. Big promotion for River.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody knows River in the Discord.
Mm-hmm.
He is being promoted to senior network engineer. Congratulations,
Nice.
River.
Good job.
Very
Congrats.
nice.
That dude
Yeah,
deserves
it's
it, though,
huge.
I believe.
Yeah,
If he's anything at work as he is in the Discord, man, that guy is thorough.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Subs, or perhaps it's Sub-Z. I'm going to say Subs.
Mm-hmm.
He passed his JNCIA Junos. Congratulations, Subs.
Oh, yeah. Very nice subs.
Carl.
Carl.
Do they still say Carl like that? Or is like The Walking Dead like just not a thing anymore?
No, I always say
I
it
still
that way.
say it.
Yeah.
Okay. Every time I hear Carl, that's all I can think. Carl. So way back when, I want to say it was like last fall, he passed the Cloud Plus beta exam, and that finally became like a thing through CompTIA. And because he has other CompTIA certifications, not only did he earn officially the Cloud Plus certification, but he was also given Secure Cloud Pro and Cloud Admin Pro. So he got like 3 certifications for like the price of one. So more for the wall in Carl's office. Congratulations, Carl.
That's awesome. Carl the machine.
Yeah, he is a machine. I mean, there are not many people that get that many certifications. So you know they work hard.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Adil Khan passed his AZ 900, and I believe they also said they were going to get straight to work on their Encore. So congratulations.
Very nice.
And our favorite butcher turned network engineer, Chris Dedman Rollet, has completed his Intro to Networking CIS class and he passed it with a solid A.
Nice.
Which, based on how hard he studies and works towards his CCNA, that's not
I think we just need to give him a permanent spot in the winning section.
Right? Yeah, he's dropping tons of cool wins in there.
It's at least every other week, if not every week.
Yeah. Lots of good stuff going on. So congratulations, everybody. Andy, can I get another goat scream, please? Love that sound.
The winning goat.
Hey, what's that goat's name, though?
HBU.
HBU.
That's right. The Twitter poll closed, and the fans have voted. The official name of our screaming goat is Hot Buttery Udders.
Leave it up to
named
the
only after our one and only Aaron, who unfortunately cannot join us this evening. But our very own Hot Buttery Udders, the winning goat.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Baxter, we're not going to get into that.
That's another story.
I take umbrage with, I'm calling the community out. The winning goat, one of the options was Winston. I mean, come on. You went with Hot Buttery Udders because haha, but Winston for the winning goat? I mean, that was the obvious choice.
I got to say I'm with Andy on this one.
Come on, people.
I definitely am with Andy, but I also think Andy's a little salty, too, because he wanted
Andy salty?
So
what?
bad.
I'm not salty. I'm not salty anymore. Dude, I got up this morning. I rode 10 miles on my bike. I meditated. This is the new Zen Andy. Since my vacation in the Outer Banks, man, I'm chill. No more saltiness.
Can we call you Zandy?
Since your vacation and after you got the pool finished.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's an important caveat.
That's
All right.
funny.
Excellent. Well, congratulations, everybody, and congratulations to our goat for getting a name. I'm sure we are working quietly in the background to get some exciting goat-related merch out there. I'm going to let you know as soon as that drops. But I digress. I want to talk to Mr. Baxter a lot more about his background because I'm really curious. How do you become an SE manager for an out-of-band management company?
Good question. I can tell you it's not a deliberate it's kind of an accidental position that you fall into, I guess. I'm not sure I know of any SE managers who that was my eye on the prize direction I was going all along.
Right. Yeah, I would say until I knew that SE was a job, it's not something that I aspired to be. But after understanding what that role does and it's cool. I could see myself doing that kind of thing. So
Yeah, same.
definitely want to hear how you got there.
Yeah, I can tell you how I kind of got to be an SE, and then it's almost a similar story to becoming an SE manager, but they're very related. So I kind of listened to some of the stories and of the origin stories of some of your community, and it seems like either I had my eyes on the prize, CCIAE, I'm going to become CCNA. I'm on a track and I'm going to go work and be a network engineer, or I was something else and kind of moved into it. And I think all along my career, it's kind of been both. Originally I started out to be an art teacher, an artist. I loved art, wanted to be an art teacher, eyes on the prize, graduate, go out and be an art teacher. And then, that time came, got out. I couldn't find work in the area I was in. So I decided, to go take a job with, doing something I could do with technology. I've always loved technology and started working as a service technician for a reseller. And so, at that point, I just kind of said, well, I'm going to learn everything I can. I know how to research. I love technology. So I just said a new prize, eyes on the prize. And I kind of started looking at being the best technician I could, learn printers, learned PCs, went to work for a reseller, and they were doing a lot of these early days, Novell Networks, which was a lot about getting PCs and servers on a network, and just over time really built up a real affinity for networking. Kind of like I got into servers and I didn't like it so much. I really liked networking, and so immediately started doing courses, tried going for my CCNA, taking the test, and then threw my hat out in the ring and eventually landed a job with a big bank in New York City. And it's kind of funny in hindsight. My first gig was going to be maintaining routers and switches on the trading floor in New York City.
Whoa,
Oh,
okay.
wow.
No pressure.
Yeah.
No pressure there, right? But again, I'm heading towards that path, and I got a call from an SE manager I'd worked with, when I was working at a partner, and he said, "Do you want to come work for us and be one of my sales engineers?" And first I'm like, "Hey, I really want to be a network engineer," but he kind of gave me a very convincing argument, and I really thought about it, and again, a detour. I just shifted gears. Never really thought I would be in sales, but suddenly found myself as a sales engineer.
Hey, Dan, can I guess what they told you? Did they say, well, there's no nights, there's no weekends, there's no maintenance windows, and you'll make more money? Is that
sold?
Yeah, because we've talked to a couple sales engineers recently. Like AJ said earlier, I didn't even know what an SE was, and once I talked to one, they're like, well, you can come work over here. There are no maintenance windows. You'll make more. I'm like, wait a minute, what? There's no on call. Like, why aren't I doing this job? Is that the pitch they gave you?
He may have added some of that in there. Yeah, he may have done that. I wasn't complete. That would have been my first real gig as a partner. You didn't do a lot of late nights. You didn't do a lot of maintenance windows. A lot of what you did was during the day, and so I was probably not aware of what I know today in the life of a network engineer. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot of after hours. Maintenance doesn't happen during the day. So it was certainly a different path than than what I was heading into. It's been a great run. I love being an SE. I still like working with networking, but I just like being an SE. It really changed my focus. The thing was, like, suddenly I'm in sales. Okay, how do you prepare somebody to be a sales engineer? You're not necessarily a sales rep. You've got you got to be technical. You got to know your body of knowledge. You got to become an SME. But I just said, I had these skills becoming a network engineer. I knew how to train. I knew how to focus, and I knew how to research. Community was big, so I reached out to the other people in my org, the other SEs. I must have been like that new kid asking a million questions, right? And I just still remember those guys, and they were pretty patient with me, but I really kind of approached it with the same approach I took to learning networking. There's not testing and manuals for you out there, but there's knowledge base out there. So I looked to mentors and just got my mind around the technology and just started becoming the best SE I could.
Can we take a step back for
a
second?
I gotta say something here.
Got to.
So, given what we just learned, Dan, about your earliest career path, coupled with you getting into what you got into in technology, we've got living proof here now, folks, that there is an art to network engineering.
All right, Tim.
I
All right,
didn't
we
even
can
make
continue.
that tie. Like, how perfect is that? Like, thank you, Tim. That was fantastic.
I do like that. I kind of agree with that. I often talk, with our team, sales for us is like a craft in some ways. It's a craftsmanship. It's something we want to be really good at. It doesn't matter whether I'm going to be in, my medium doing an artist, or, a musician's going to be doing something, but you can just do it. But, sometimes when you're really in your groove and you're loving it, that's a craft. That's an art.
Yeah.
I have two questions. So, was that first desk a help desk position, basically? You said you were doing like printers, and I didn't recognize the job title, but would it be akin to what help desk would be? The reason I'm asking is a lot of our audience are people who are trying to get their foot in the door, right? And you went from like, educated art teacher guy who couldn't get a job and then got this job in tech. How did you get your first job in tech?
It was all baby steps. I had worked as an instructional designer because I had a degree in education. So I worked as an instructional designer doing computer-based training. And it was just the tiniest little thing I latched onto. At this time, you guys we had XTs and 286, and we had to repair them ourselves. So you're writing, I'm writing the script for the training, and the computer would die, or I'd have to do an upgrade. I'd have to go out and do that upgrade myself. And so I just started self-teaching myself PC upgrades. And so I went into a partner, and I started with PCs. Then I learned HP printers, and then I learned the Novell. That's why I learned networking. One little step. I was really what I was doing was going after technology. I realized that technology was really, really important. If you knew it and you were good at it, that could get you solid. It could get you advancement. And so I just grabbed every technology I could and learned it. And I worked my way up from PC technician to, Novell network installer to installing servers. And then suddenly I'm cabling, I'm doing switches, and now I'm learning VLANs. And just one step after another is how I got into it. I just kind of worked my way through up each of the positions.
It's a smart insight too you had. Like, oh wait, there's tech is everywhere. This is important. Maybe I should focus on this. And I guess you enjoyed it, right? Because you wouldn't have pursued it if you couldn't stand it.
I did. I really liked tech. I had always been, I was that kid always taking apart toys and pulling out the motors and just working on things. I was one of the first kids with, the computer lab, working on my Radio Shack, I think it was. And we had cassette recorders for hard drives, and we just, any technology I get my hand on. And it wasn't until later I realized I can make a career out of this, and I can be good at it. And I will say, in those days, there wasn't really the internet when I started out in all this. It was manuals, and there was that information. But today there's so much information. There's so much ability for you to research. If you're trying to get in there, just show that interest, learn those technologies, and you got to start. It's not going to happen overnight. You got to really do your time, right?
Yeah.
Now, Dan, as you moved up in your career, did you just kind of set yourself up by working hard and learning new things? Did the opportunities come to you, or did you still feel like you had to put yourself out there and go to them?
I think the detours came to me, but everything else I was really driven to get. I really wanted to advance for a lot of reasons. I liked it. I like technology, but I also had a career, motivation. My son was 1 year old, and I wanted to get something that was going to be solid. And I realized, technology was a way to get me there. But I really worked hard at it. It was very deliberate. Some people, I worked with people who just, maybe they were naturally good. They just did it. I'm in a band on the weekends, and this pays, this is my daytime job. But, one of the guys I worked with, he would have quit and done his band, but he was good at servers. So he did that and paid his bills. But, I was always, I want to learn this. I want to become an expert, and it's going to take me to that next step. I probably wasn't ever the kind of person who said, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm kind of that wandering, I don't want to say spirit, that's hokey, but I'm kind of just going out and, I gotta have change. I gotta have advancement and progress. That's kind of just my DNA. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with just, doing your job and doing it well and contributing. That's a kind of if you can do that, man, great. There's a lot of not strife, but it's challenge to continue to advance, right? It takes a lot of things. So I was definitely deliberate.
Did you get that network engineering job on the stock exchange, or you saw that job, you were getting ready for that, and then you got talked into the SE?
2 weeks away. I was already living outside. I was in Red Bank, New Jersey. They were going to bring me in and start training me up, and I got that call, and I just, I made that change. I was so close.
Now, is that somebody you knew? Like, who reached out to you?
He was a sales engineering manager. Yeah, and I worked with him when I was at a reseller, and we were the company was Zyplex a long time ago, and we were selling their terminal servers. I was up in northern Michigan, and he would come in and do training, and I would just suck and drive every bit of information. What's the difference between a hub and a switch? What? And so he remembered that I was that kid who just asked a million questions, and we would drive to a customer together. I'd probably talk his ear off the whole way. So don't be shy to ask questions, right?
Oh yeah.
And that passion's infectious too, right? When you get somebody who's hungry and asking a lot of questions, that excites me, when I get somebody who wants to know stuff. So how much sales is in sales engineering? And so when we had architects on the show, I thought I wanted to be an architect, so I kept asking them like, "Ooh, how do you do this?" And well, now that I know what an SE is and want to be one, and I do have a sales background, so some of the SEs you talk to, they say, well, there's dedicated sales folks, right? And I just come in, I'm the nerd that talks to their nerds, and I don't really have to sell. Is that your experience, or do you kind of need some, sales acumen? How much sales is in the sales engineer job? Because it's tech and it's sales, right? Like it's kind of both.
It is, but I think sales engineers sit a little in between. We do work with sales reps, and they're 100% sales. I think the skills that are essential for an SE are part soft skills and part technical. The soft skills are less about sales and selling something, but more about advising the customer and gaining trust and credibility, and how we understand our customers. By the time they come to us today, they're like 90% of the way on their journey. So they're looking to us to answer some questions that they just can't get answered. And they want us to kind of guide them through the process of owning the technology. So we got to be that source of knowledge for them. We don't really sell to them. We can, I will talk about a competitor's products with them and help them understand the differences and make, it's their choice at the end of the day. So if I could bring in somebody without sales skills and make them a good SE. But if they don't have any technology capability, they're just never going to be able to be an SE.
And that's what was behind that question, because people inherently don't trust salespeople, right?
What?
Well, listen.
He said what?
Well, listen. So I used to be a used car salesman, right? So you got to figure where I'm coming from. What's that?
Where's the goat?
Yeah. But well, so it's just an economics thing. I mean, salespeople make their living by convincing you to buy their thing, right? So you said trust. You have to build trust with those folks, and that's hard as a salesperson to get, like, hey, I'm here to sell you my stuff, but you also have to develop that relationship. So I'm just kind of fascinated at this SE role and how you're kind of in between sales, but not. You kind of have to, you have to earn their trust and let them know you're on their team, but at the same time, you're not there just to jam them with the new shiny box and then, leave. So it's an interesting role to me.
It is. And I'll just say this in defense of our sales reps. They're not salesy, they're not hard selling. They, number one, they sell to network engineers, right? They all have they have like a New York minute to get what they need to get done. We usually hack through as many slides. We're like, okay, I'm not going to show those slides. We're just going to get to your needs. The role of our sales guys are to be trusted advisors. They just need to help the customer move forward. They're not trying to convince them into any position at all. But, for an SE, it's not so much sales as you just need to know how to help the customer, really.
Yeah.
So Dan, I wanted to ask you, your original, I guess, like aspirations were to be like an instructor, an artist. And is there anything that you can link to your current position that kind of like scratches that itch for you? Like, do you still, feel as fulfilled in your current role today as maybe what you set out to be an art teacher?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because, everybody has something they're interested in doing, and you can bring those things to what you're doing in your career. And, I try to always bring art to what I was doing. Number one, it's like an art of sales. It's an art of being an SE, right? It's my craft I'm trying to do, but I'm also trying to be very creative. I like to think outside of the box. I like to create new things. That's why OpenGear was so exciting. We were always creating new things. And even down to little things like PowerPoints and diagrams and Visios, there's always some outlet for that really desire to do that expression. I can find it in a lot of stuff I do all throughout the day. Even my comments, when I comment out things, I'm thinking, how does it look in the document for the end user?
There you go.
So we've talked about out of band briefly, and then we got into your journey and how you became a sales engineer, then went a sales engineer and all that stuff. I'm guessing, because I'm thinking of myself when I was starting out in my career, even before, like, hey, I got to get my CCNA and get my first job. I'm guessing there's a good amount of people that don't know what out of band is, right?
Yeah.
So should we kind of start there maybe? Like, what is this out of band, and then kind of go into the history of, you know, where it came from?
We
Maybe.
can, because can't believe I say it, like the new generation of network. I know, right? Yeah. So I've been around, enough to see a new generation of network engineers come in, and they're not necessarily aware of out of band. So we do talk to customers, and they may be new to network engineering, and like, what is that out of band thing? And some of them may have network out of band management in their network and not even know about it. So it's probably, we can outline it. Out of band, so what is out of band? It really kind of refers to managing something in a way that's not, directly through the production interface. It can also mean managing something through an alternate path, like a dial-up modem or LTE. Now, for a Windows person, out of band used to be KVM, now it's ILO. For a VM person, you're going to get on a VM console. That's out of band of sorts. And for a network engineer, out of band really means getting access to their local console ports. So whenever that dark night and cat and puppy thing happens, you don't get locked out. So what people should know is that you out of band can give you an anytime, anywhere access to that piece of equipment, regardless of the state of the network. Whatever the puppy and cat do, whatever you do, whatever that bad day is, you'll always be able to get to that device. So at the heart of it is what today are called console servers. So if you guys have probably heard terminal servers, you hear the term back and forth. So when I started in with terminal servers, they were literally terminal servers. There was a dumb terminal. It was someone typing away at a screen with two colors, a light gray and a dark gray, and they were accessing a mainframe or a VM of a VA, like a VAX system or a Unix system. So it was the serial thing getting out to a host. And that continued for a while. It was all 10-base-T, but right there, that was when Bay Networks and Cisco were going at it. The network was booming. Things were going on around the world. The internet was growing, and networking just went crazy. And suddenly, people got off that technology, got onto IP. The internet went crazy. This is right around when AOL was around. You guys know AOL, and that started coming up. And that terminal server got repurposed into being an access server. So you'd hang modems off it. Everybody at home would screechy dial up into it, and they would get access. So if you're an ISP, if Dan's going to say, hey, I'm going to do Dan's ISP, I don't want to buy a big, Cisco AS5200. I can get a terminal server, put modems on it, and people dial into that through PPP, and they get on the network. And so that was great, right? So I went from terminal server to an access server. Well, the internet went crazy, broadband came in, and somebody said, what if we take this terminal server and we switch it around? And instead of a serial device trying to get out to something on the IP network, what if it's people trying to get to a serial device? That could have been a Sun server. It could have been a router switch. The thing to know is everything in the networking world, almost everything today still has a local console port. It's an RS-232, and if you're right next to it, yeah, that's great. You hook up to it and you can connect to it. But I mean, guys, how often are you guys right next to your equipment when you're setting it up?
Other than
it's
you're
cold
doing,
in there. I don't want to be right next to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, it all really changed, and this is when out of band really started maturing. The internet was going crazy, a lot of growth in the networking world, and it really out of band really matured. It started off with modems. If the network was down, it was a really bad day, you would try to dial in, and you'd get on. You'd have you'd have your CLI access to that device. Pretty much, the carriers came out, Comcast and others, and they all had cable modems. And so someone said, hey, I'm not going to take that POTS line in there. I'm going to put a cable modem right onto my access server, and then I'm going to use that to get to my out-of-band device. And then from there, I can get to my routers and switches.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
Dan, from an enterprise customer standpoint, do you see out-of-band console servers more in data centers or more at remote branch locations, or is it a pretty even split? Where do you see the application distribution of out-of-band console servers?
We still see both, because somebody somewhere has a router or switch running anything. If it's the cloud, maybe it's the cloud provider who owns it. So we see a combination. Historically, I'm a customer. I call them up. We do a call with them. We've got 3 data centers. I've got a DR site, and I have 20 remote locations. And for maybe 10 years, that was the MO. And then it started changing. People started moving to colos, and out of band became really important for them for different reasons, because they're separated from it. And then things started virtualizing, and then of course SD-WAN came in, and the edge started going crazy. So today in 2021, it's really the far edge, the near edge, the branch sites. We're seeing a huge amount of activity there. But we still see a lot of stuff at the enterprise core in the data centers, whether it's your core, right, or somebody else's. Today, how many customers actually are building, new data centers? It's mostly, I'm going to a colo, or I'm going to go to a cloud.
And what does the form factor look like? If I want remote access to a device, is my out-of-band console, is it a one-to-one thing? Can I have a one-to-many connection? What does that form factor look like?
Yeah, the console servers, they'll come in 4 ports all the way up. We've got a 96 port unit, it's front and back.
Whoa.
Yeah, and we have customers who gobble those up, and that's hyperscale. It depends on your rack. Some customers will typically it'd be a 32 or 48 port in a rack, and that rack may serve left and right the whole row. Okay. Or some customers have enough density that they'll put a console server in every rack. Wow. Yeah, they're 1U appliances. You really want that one to many relationship. I just want to get to that one IP, or I go through my central management and it gets me to that group of serial ports all around my network. But it is definitely a one to many.
I just want to go on record as saying I love me some out of band. My first experience with it was in my home lab. I had my CCNA and I got a job at the NOC, and then all these big dogs that had all this experience around me was like, you need to build a lab and go after your CCNP. I'm like, all right. And they told me one of the things I needed was a console server. Mm-hmm. And the reason being is, I had whatever it was, like, a bunch of routers and switches. They're like, hey, you could just go from, 1 to 1 to 1. Right. Instead of, there's Dan on the video, instead of moving the console, the blue cable from device to device, when I was configuring it, it was nice. I would just log into my console server, and then 7001, the port assignments, you could just put them in secure CRT and get right to them. So that was pretty sweet. I could get to all my devices in my lab, through that. My lab wasn't next to me. It was, in a basement somewhere. Yeah. But then years later at work, I'm managing data centers all over the world, and I can't go to them. Like Dan works in a data center, and a lot of times he can run down with a console cable. Mm-hmm. Right. But then I know you have other locations too. So, yeah. I was mentioning to you before the show, I have a maintenance tonight in Salt Lake City. I'm in Philadelphia, and I shipped a router out there, and I got to get it up, and it's not going to come up on the circuit. We're having problems with the circuit. I got to get hands out there. It was a problem getting hands because it's a colo. I love out of band because typically if it's our data center, it's plugged into our management zone, and then it's also plugged into a console server. So I can always get to the thing, right? And there have been times when we have a problem with our management zone. Can't get the stuff. Get to that console server, you're right in. We have to be able to get to our devices, right? We have a lot of people depending on this infrastructure, and I love that the out of band gives me that parachute that I can always get in. For me, it's a warm and fuzzy kind of feeling, like because things break, right?
Safety.
Things go down, things break, and there's a lot of reasons. So I don't know. That's just my little personal story of how I came to be introduced to out of band and what it's done for me. I wish I had a console server at this location tonight that I got to try to turn up because the circuit is not coming up, and it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, and I think one thing too is we've all I don't know if you guys have sit there, like when you're about to push a config to a router or switch or whatever, and you're going through your notepad because, you know, we're still copy and pasting over here, and you're like, okay, if I paste this first, I'm going to lose connection at that point, right?
Oh
and
my
then
God.
now
so
I
many
need to
times,
go,
AAA.
yeah, and so it's like you.
I've locked myself out of so many devices playing with
and,
AAA.
And so you start from the furthest point, right? And then you work your way back as you open up the port or open up the interface, or, you know, add trunks to VLANs, or add VLANs to trunks, and you walk yourself back. You have to sit there and think about that. Without a ban, you wouldn't have to do that, right? You wouldn't have to worry about, okay, I need to make sure I put this first before I break my connection, so that when I bring the connection up on the closer side, now I've got connection back to the, you know, the further side. But or let's say who's ever done this, you put an ACL on the far end device, and you locked yourself out, and then there you go. Now you've got to send somebody on site. If you can get somebody on site, you might have to go there yourself, you know, depending on where it's at or what your situation is. And then you have to either, if the person knows how to console into something, or get them to turn off the router and turn it back on and let it wipe that config. And that's another thing too, is like, I don't know if you guys have done this. I'm sure you guys have, but there's been times where I have, you know, I get a config ready and I'm like, this might break this. And so I will do a reboot in a certain amount of time. Say that again.
Reloading 10.
5.
Yeah, reloading 5. Do my command and just, you know, pray it didn't break it. And if it did, you know, I'll go get me a cup of coffee or something and wait for that sucker to reload.
That moment you drop the config and everything freezes, you're like, oh, son of a.
Yeah, your little cursor quits blinking. You know, it's like, oh no.
It's a rite of passage.
Yeah.
Locking
Yeah,
yourself
totally.
out of a device.
And
So I think it's important, you know, since we feel like, and I think very accurately, that probably not a lot of our listeners know what out of band is. Let's just, I guess, throw it out there what the opposite of out of band is to kind of further state why it's so important, and that would be in band management, and that is when you use the same production network to access. So, you know, you're sitting at your desk and you're using your enterprise network to SSH to all your devices. You know, that's when you can really cut your arm off. And when you cut your arm off from in-band management, that's when you have the out-of-band management to save you, you know, to be able to...
Yeah,
Tim's pointing to himself.
I am them.
Yeah. The in-band is basically what I was describing earlier, right? It's like if you have a router and on your gig 1/1 interface, you put an IP address, right? And then you now SSH to that router on that interface's IP address. That's in-band right there. Whereas what out-of-band provides is if you were actually plugged in straight into the console port on the back of that router. So just to kind of give a high level of...
The console's always there.
Yeah.
It's a friendly hand. It might be slow, but it's there and it will help you.
It really is that lifeline to be able to get to that from anywhere.
Yeah.
You guys are so good. I can just go on mute. I mean,
Hey,
you're doing a great job.
Well, I just wanted to provide some
we wanted
context
to
on,
give
like,
some war stories, you know, and Dan, I don't know if you've heard any of my war stories in the past on some of the other episodes, but like one of my first experiences where Dan brought down the network was I was sitting at my desk and I was adding VLANs to a trunk, and I forgot to put the add command, the add word at the very end of it. So all I did was I added the single VLAN that I was adding to the other VLANs. I only added that single VLAN, and so boom, I dropped the entire floor, dropped connection, and we didn't have out of band. And I grabbed my laptop and my console cable and I booked it to the data center so that I could undo what I just did. And so that I have personal scars about not having out of band. Whereas if I had out of band, if I would have made that mistake, if I was using out of band and I made that mistake, I could have easily just copied and pasted back in my entire config, and it would have been a blimp, right? Rather than an outage like that.
You could have gone back and reviewed logs, so the console servers, they'll know exactly what you typed in.
Exactly. they'll know that Dan, he messed it up. They'll tell on me.
Well, until you delete the logs.
Yeah, right. So
think about someone new to a position. You're going to turn up a site here. Go ahead, do this. They don't want to get anything wrong, right? It's nice to have that security, knowing that you have a rollback model. A lot of our customers say you can't do your maintenance window until you verify that you've got your out of band connection. It's live, and make sure that you can connect to it in case you get that compelling event.
yeah.
You said something just there, Dan, where you said that you need to make sure you could have that check that makes sure the out of band is there. Do you see people deploying out of band with redundancy? And what I mean by that is, do you see people that have maybe direct internet access into it and then maybe cellular as well? Or do people just typically have one entry point into an out of band system?
Oh, hopefully they've got 2 or 3.
Okay.
Yeah, they should at least have an AB on their Ethernet ports. They should have today POTS lines are it's hard to get, expensive, and so LTE is really the way to go. In a data center, it might be one LTE device as a gateway to others. At a branch site, you definitely want to get on there and make sure that LTE modem is active. I mean, that is a IP interface, and it's certainly the one you want to know. Like when Andy or someone's going to go do an install, you can send out that console server with LTE enabled. He can put it on his desk with LTE enabled, wrap it up, ship it to the site. Someone unboxes it and plugs it in. Same as it's powered up, he's on that device.
Yeah, we should have done that.
So since we're talking about access to out of band, I kind of wanted to bring up the security aspect to it. So if you're logging into a console server, that it's essentially on the internet, right? If you're connecting via LTE or via the internet. So from an OpenGear standpoint, is there some sort of cloud portal that you can log into that maybe has multi-factor authentication? What are the access methods?
Yeah, the biggest security threat with the LTE interface, what hardened against, is that public static IP. They're just, everybody in all the bad countries doing malicious things, they're just hitting those ranges all the time. And so the best alternative is to take an IP that is private NAT. So it's only outbound. And so we have a thing called Lighthouse, and the nodes call into it. So when there's a bad day or there's an outage, they know about that. They say, hey, I cannot get to I can't get to the WAN, I can't get wherever. I'm down. So then it turns on its cell modem, and then it connects back. And it does that all over OpenVPN. So it's X509. It's really secure. It's only on when you need it and when there's an outage. And it's only upstream to the central portal.
So you're saying your devices have they automate failover.
That's right. We ping a certain address. We call it failover. It's part of our smart out of band solution, where we'll ping 2 addresses. If they turn up as failed, we'll assume there's an outage at that branch or that location or that cage, and then we'll turn on the modem. It'll connect to the carrier, get its IP, and then the call home tunnel will redirect. It's always on, it's always there, connected, but it'll redirect itself out through the LTE and connect. So by the time there's an outage, you'd get back on the central management, and it would have already reconnected and figured out how to get home.
Okay.
Wow.
Very cool.
That's pretty sweet.
So you said smart out of band, so that everything you just described is what smart out of band's doing, right? Like, I guess the opposite of that would just be none of that. Like, it's just down and
A dumb out of band.
tough, right?
Be really vanilla out of band without a lot of, it'd just be serial over IP, with
Yeah.
the idea with smart out of band is we've been doing this long enough and listening well enough that it's not just, we have LT embedded. We have really smart LTE. I mean, we'll fail over, we can keep it dormant. You can text it. Some customers text it and wake it up because they want to have a static.
Okay.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Some
interesting.
devices will say, Andy, I'm turned on. I'm here at site, and here's my IP address if you want to get to me. Or, hey, it can say, I just had an alert. I saw this condition happen, and it'll use that cell modem to text you. So we kind of say these are all kind of smart ways of putting the pieces together.
So if
So I
we're
was
just
texting my router last night.
If you're really lonely, you can have conversations. You can text.
We have started communicating with them.
I've heard you mention once or twice about how you guys listen, right? And then I guess work on solutions. So like how does OpenGear work with the networking community, and how do you guys develop things? I mean, I think we've set the stage, right? Like who you are, how you got there, and then we've talked a lot about out-of-band, what it does, how it does it. I'm kind of interested in, your company, right? Like why you're here. You're educating us about about out-of-band, but also how does OpenGear help? What problems are you solving? What are people telling you? You said like you're listening to people and creating solutions. I mean, what have you seen since you've been at OpenGear? What have you guys done to fire up the space to make out-of-band better, to make it smart? What do people want, right?
And that's exactly right. We constantly listen. We do demos. We ask them. I think one of the things that cracked me up for a lot of years was we would show them everything and say, so what did we miss here, guys? What are we not having here? Tell me about something.
Okay.
And for a long time, people would be like, that's it, right? OpenGear had nailed it. But we did Cisco Live. We, and get ourselves involved in Nanog and a lot of other different events. And we just, we do Tech Field Day. We listen to network engineers. We don't just go out and build the best smart, it's the best mousetrap. It's if you look at our feature set, those are all things customers asked for. Hey, I'm doing this. Do you guys have support for that? And we say no, but we were able to really fast prototype and get things into production for customers. So we really listened well. Today, we started hearing things like, do you have support for Python? I want to do Python on box. They're like, okay, why does a network engineer want to do Python on a box? I've got my boxes I got UR console servers everywhere. I got central management to them. I just realized I have proximity to every single point in my network. Can my automation group drop something in there? So we heard these kind of trends coming for the last, 4 years, trickling up and more. And so we just started putting them in there. I mean, the real secret sauce is that we have this really well-built hardware that was custom built for network engineers. And then we just kept, over time, like 10 years of listening and adding to the feature set. If you're a network engineer coming in and you said, well, I need this list, the chances are we got them covered. And if we don't, we have the flexibility to get those put in there.
It's pretty amazing. Like, do you guys have like an R&D department? I mean, how do you take a feature that doesn't exist, figure it out, spin it up, engineer it, and then put it in your boxes? That's pretty amazing to me.
Yeah, the founders did a really good job right out of the gate. They, the name OpenGear is not, by accident. It's open source. Mm-hmm. We engineer and manufacture our own hardware and got really good at it and have a lot of control over that. And we have a lot of dev teams that we can create features. I mean, it was really one of the reasons we succeeded against a lot of the other vendors in the arena, is we were nimble and we could listen. At first it was just, you got Linux and I can get to the shell and I can put a bash script. That was this kind of hybrid CCNE Linux guy that really got us to our cult following. And then we started going after the more mainstream CCIEs, and they're like, well, I need this. I need failover. I'd like it to be able to do this. And we really listened to those things. And the kind of development teams we had in place were able to really crank that. I mean, there were some years there, it was pretty fast and furious. But we did enter into a more mature phase, but we still kind of have that startup hunger. And that's kind of the excitement of the job.
So you're talking about these features, like, do you mind like going over some of that? Like what are some of these automation Python features that your products offer?
Yeah. So some of the big challenges, especially in the last year, was this idea of, I'm going to ship my unit. I got to ship a router to that remote site or that new data center. And then, I got to figure out how I'm going to configure it. And the problem was, you're like on just-in-time shipping, so it's going to go straight from disti to that location. It's not coming to Andy first for him to pre-configure it, make sure everything's beautifully configured, and then being shipped. It's going to go there straight. So we created this idea of a Mars lander. The thing lands at the site. It's got a TPM chip in there, so it's going to ship safe. It calls home to the central management piece over LTE, and you say, okay, you're there now. I'm going to be booting up an Arista or a Cisco Cat 9200. Here's the config for it. All you have to do is get somebody there who can just plug into the Ethernet and plug into the serial, and we're going to provision that device for you. So it's like it's secure provisioning and out of band together.
So
Wait, you provision it too?
so you're saying like you store, like, let's say I'm the network engineer, and I know I have a site over in Arizona that's going to be turning up, and I've got my config ready and everything like that. I can go ahead and, like, are you saying I can upload this config into this device already? Like, and it ships out and it knows, hey, I have an Arista plugging in, whatever port, and I'm going to push this config to that as soon as I see that come on to the network, or how does that work?
You can choose when and where you push that config. You may want to ship the device without any configs on. I mean, it's got a TPM, no one's going to get in there. But you may not even have that config until it gets there. And so either way, you can pre-configure it with the image and the config of the file. And what happens is the device will boot up, and we will say, oh, I recognize you. You're an Arista with this MAC address.
Ah, okay.
I'm going to push this config for you. It's at my HTTPS server. You'll find your config at me. And by the way, I got an iOS image. We want you to be at 15.xb, whatever is your certified firmware. It'll either downgrade or upgrade itself to that, and then it'll apply its config. And you can watch it all. You can use the out-of-band piece and just watch the whole process happen. You'll see DHCP requests going across and files getting downloaded. I mean, it's really plug and play. It's pretty cool.
Wow, this is insane.
Yeah,
This is amazing.
that's wild.
Andy, you're traveling. You didn't need to.
Yeah.
Who knew?
What are you doing, Andy?
Obviously, I have no idea what I'm doing, Dan. We've established that.
We started hearing that request around 2017.
Okay.
Meaning we started cranking up the engines and getting the platform ready, because smart out-of-band console servers they just weren't ready to do that. They didn't have the CPU. They didn't have all that. Today, when you get some of our advanced console servers, about 50% of the resources are just waiting for that kind of stuff for you to enable it. Out of band takes 50%. The other is for you or secure provisioning.
Yeah.
So what you're describing is like a lot of a senior or deployment engineer, like I work for a partner, and a lot of guys on my team that work for professional services, like this is the kind of stuff we do. Customer buys a new router, switch, whatever it is. They're sending it to a data center that, nobody works near because it's like far, far away from everything else that they do. So, hey, they hire us to go out there and set it up for them and be the remote hands. And so you're kind of talking about my job on the line here, man.
He's going to take your job.
You make this be part of your services.
Yeah. Yes. Go. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, you do the job. We're making it easier for you to do your job.
That way you can kick your feet up on the desk and let this little box do the trick. That is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting to see a lot of the changes when SD-WAN and cloud and everything started changing. We started seeing a lot of NetOps. I don't know if you guys have seen that happening, but we really started seeing a new person in the meetings, or a new person on the call. We've got Helen from automation is here. Mm-hmm. And the next thing we saw was my guy Frank was suddenly saying, I have to go home at night. I'm going to be learning Python tonight, right? We had network engineers starting to learn DevOps. I don't know if you guys have seen that starting to come to town yet.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that face on Andy.
It's great. I failed out of coding in college, and here I am learning code. I'm thrilled.
You spend your entire career avoiding it like I did, and then all of a sudden you find yourself... Yeah, because I took coding in college, and I was just like, this is cool, but I wouldn't want to do this for a living, and now I wish I maybe paid a little closer.
Wait, let me backtrack that. Important people at my company are listening. Yes, I love NetDevOps, and Python and Ansible are everything I'm about. It is easy, and it's great.
Put the socks back on your hand.
Yeah.
So the good news, a lot of customers, so right now we ask them, where are you at in this journey? Most of them are, I'm not there yet. And they all have a compute or an automation team. So they work together. So don't worry, you're good, Andy. Those guys will do the coding, and you'll do the networking.
You just sit over there and look pretty, Andy, okay? You just get that smile.
That's all
going.
I got.
He's having a hard time doing that. So I'm just kidding. I love you, Andy. You know that.
You see that haircut, though? I mean, that is fresh.
I know. I'm jealous of that haircut.
I did it myself.
Yeah. I trimmed this bit. No, I didn't. I should do that. I grew it myself. But...
So I'm like, I can't believe that there's a box I could have shipped with this router, and I could just the LTE I think is what's blowing my mind, because like in our managed data centers, not the colos, we have to get a console server out. We got to plug it into our management network. You got to, HTTPS to it from a web browser, get in, do the configuration. Like, if I'm understanding you correctly, this damn thing just, you plug it in somewhere, it grabs an LTE connection and just configures itself. Like, that's unbelievable. So I could have shipped it to this colo. They could have plugged it in and then plugged the console cable from that device, the 4-port guy, into my router, and I'm in. That's
amazing. Now
it really is. Like, I didn't even know it existed. That's the LTE is blowing my mind, I think.
Well, so
we like to bootstrap the network. We're not going to do everything, right?
Yeah.
We're going to get in there.
Sure.
What we're going to do is ship that router, and it'll say, "Hey, Andy, I'm here," and then you'll get in and do your magic, right?
Yeah.
We're just going to get the bare essence, the bare config to get it bootstrapped.
Yeah, get me in.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So let's talk a little bit about, how do I access this box? Like Andy kind of hinted on it a little bit earlier. Is it a dashboard that I log into, or how do I connect to this out of band management box that you're talking about?
It's really up to you and at the scale you're at. You could go to the appliances themselves. You can go to their GUI, if that's what your preference is, or you can go to the CLI. Now, everything you do in the GUI, you can do in the CLI. It's going to be an IP access, or you can connect to it, locally with your laptop if you were there. But it's almost always a remote IP access to the appliance. Once you get to about 20 or 40, or a certain number of devices, or if you have a lot of cellular, you're going to use our central management piece. It's called Lighthouse, and you'll just go to that portal and you'll just type, "I want to go to Cleveland Arista 4," and it'll take you to that console port. And if someone's attached it, you'll go there.
Now, can you do, like you were talking about, the bootstrapping portion of, hey, I need this ISO to be pushed to, any Cisco router that connects over, whatever. Do you put that in the Lighthouse? Is that something that's pushed up there, and then that's pushed to the out of band management, or how does that work? I guess walk me through that.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. That is exactly what happens. The central management piece orchestrates it.
Okay.
So you go in there and you say, it's all visual orchestration. It's really nice. You don't have to become an Ansible playbook expert. You don't have to become a DHCP setup, configuration expert. Yeah, there are 58 steps that are done. If you watch the Ansible playbook, there's 58 steps that we're doing behind the scenes for you to make that happen, or more. What happens is, though, you just go in, you say, "I'm turning up a site. It's got these 5 devices. Here's their MAC addresses. I'm going to click browse and load in my configs, my cut and paste configs. I'm going to load those in as a config dot whatever. And here's the image. You load that in and you say push, and it'll push them out to whatever console servers or all console servers that you want. It does the setup. It does the distribution for you.
Okay.
So that Lighthouse server, is that like a multi-tenant thing hosted by OpenGear? Is that something that I can, host myself in the cloud? What does that look like?
That's a virtual appliance. So you can install it in your own VM infrastructure, or you could host it up in AWS or Azure or whatever, your cloud environment. We're not necessarily 100% of a cloud. We are a hosted appliance, but yeah, you host it. It can be redundant. We have primary and secondary. So you could have secondaries in DR, and all the units call home. You could have one in Tokyo and one in New York, and all the units call home, to those one devices. So you don't ever have a single point of failure. But it's a device. It's a hosted appliance.
Gotcha.
Nice.
Is it a virtual appliance, or is it like a physical box?
Yeah.
It's a virtual appliance. It's like a Linux. So all of our appliances are embedded Linux, and this is just a virtual embedded Linux device. And you don't bring up a Linux host and then host a Linux VM and then drop the software in. It is everything self-contained.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the scale there? How many remote console servers can I have to one instance of Lighthouse?
There seems to be like a golden threshold. Anybody's getting close to 2,000, they start to get to a scale where they're like, we're going to take over this and we're going to have our own tools team. At this kind of scale, we just tend to, we grow our own, we create our own software, and they'll take over. So they kind of get up to around 2,000 is kind of where we see them saying, from here on out, we're gonna take it over into our own automated systems. They might start doing things with Ansible and APIs. It's just creating their own portals.
Okay.
It's pretty big. If you're a remote, that's a lot of remote branches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we have customers close to that with just the remote branch part.
Wow.
Speaking of scale, and we've said cloud a couple times. So like I'm thinking like Azure, AWS, right? Like they have a bajillion devices in their data centers. Do they approach like an OpenGear? I mean, they must have console servers in there, right? Like, is that? I mean, you probably can't tell us who your clients are, but are there console servers sitting in these Azure, AWS super duper data centers with a bajillion devices? Like, do you guys have?
I hope so.
Well, right. I mean, well, you would have to, right? And that's what got me thinking. The scale, like just the scale of those places, is probably mind-numbing. Yeah.
We have hyperscale customers,
right?
And these are the customers who are at this kind of scale where they don't need our central management. They put things in racks. Their automation systems grab it, configure it. If there's a problem with it, they pull it out. They put a new device in. And the thing is, hardware and software sales they're not slowing down as things move to the cloud. And the obvious reason for that is, if you're going to go to a cloud vendor and run your network in a virtualized network, they need to create the gear. So there is still a lot of network equipment out there, and we are very important to hyperscale. Now, some customers are so big they build their own silicon.
Yeah, I figured that was the case.
Yeah, they build their own switches, they build their own servers, they drop their own CPUs in. Those ones are like, they would not use anybody's console server, but we're pretty much everywhere.
Wow.
Where there's a network, we're probably there.
Okay.
Yeah, hyperscale on down to tiny little, an unmanned station somewhere out in Topeka. But it's pretty amazing, especially at the hyperscale. They have different requirements than a small site, but we kind of have appeased them all somehow. It's pretty cool.
So you're flexible then.
What's that?
So you're flexible then.
We're fast, friendly, and flexible. Yeah.
Ah, okay. I like that right there.
Nice alliteration. The marketing department.
He's put that one off.
Ryan, you're welcome for that one. So it's that platform, and it's just we do I can't give you the exact number. We do a lot of demos. The SCs do a lot of demos every day, all week long. We talk to so many network groups, and they're all different. I don't know if you guys have ever kind of picked up on this, but there's no network engineers the same. There's no network group. There's a lot of similarities, but they're all just a little different. And we just listen to that, and we go back to the product managers. We've flown in our engineering solutions team. We just spent a whole day telling them what we learned about customers over the last year. They went home with this kind of scrolls, the golden scrolls under their arms. So that's kind of what we're always trying to do, is make this relevant solution.
So let me kind of ask let's hit on the sales side just a little bit. We'll see how good the sales side of your title
What's
is.
that smirk for there, Mr. Richards?
Nah. So I can attest, from personal experience, I feel like trying to sell out of band management to your company's management, sometimes that's kind of a hard sell, right? Like,
it is.
So do you have any like what are some cases where you've ran into that, and do you have any like tips on how to make management understand our pain? You know what I'm saying? Like,
how can Dan Richards finally get some console servers in his data center? That's what he's saying.
To a network engineer, anybody listen to this, like it's a no-brainer, right? Like if you didn't know what OLB was before, now you do, and you're like, why don't I have this? But then now you got to go to management and make that sell. So that's a great question.
Yeah, and you can't go to your manager and say, look, we either put these into projects or you're going to have a compelling event that you're going to be really angry about. And I don't want to say "I told you so," right? "I told you so" is not a good management incentive.
Threatening usually doesn't work.
Yeah, and scaring, like, ooh, there's a lot of
Yeah.
there's a lot. But what we can do is we do help our customers articulate that during the POC process. We definitely know that the time will come that champion of the POC, they have to go do a management presentation. You have to show your team, you have to socialize it, and you got to say to the management, why is this important to us? And what we do is we help you articulate that to your management. And it's going to be different. Some people, it's about, we need always on access. Some we have to have low risk. We have to deploy services fast. This is going to help us do the services faster. Some people, they're just, by the nature of their business, errors are really bad, right? One screw up and somebody doesn't get to stream the Super Bowl, right? It really depends on the customer application, and what we do is we tailor it. But I would say, you got to articulate it in the terms that the management understands. This is going to help us do our service better. It's going to help us have less risk. It's going to make the team happier. Tim isn't going to have to stay up so late at night, and he won't be cranky in the morning, right? You got to
be cranky.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we sometimes put in ROIs. We talk about the cost of outages, but I like to articulate it more about what it means to the team and the business objectives.
Yeah.
Really, at the end of the day, I need to make your life better. I need to make an engine. You need to say, I need this because this will make my life. I got 99 problems and this won't be one of them.
Out of band ain't one. No, that's good. Because I know me personally, I know Andy says he's got a sales background, but I don't. And I feel like I struggle with trying to, and this kind of goes back to, we had an episode talking about like soft skills and whatnot. Like how do you translate, what you're dealing with to management to be like how this would be a good fit for me or that kind of thing. And I struggle with that personally. And so I'm always curious, like, how can I translate how important this can be, and without like, like kind of what you were saying, like without threatening them, right? Without coming up to them and being like, well, remember that time I told you we should have bought this one thing because it would save us from this, and we just went through that and it was very painful and all that. That I don't want to be that guy, and so I've just always been curious, like.
And network engineers aren't built to, they're built to network. Manage networks. It's not like, did they ever realize at some point they're going to have to stand up in front of the group and articulate the value of this thing that they've been looking into? About 3 weeks ago, I worked with a network engineer, first job, right? Just right out. He's a contractor. He's not even in the fold just yet. And they gave him the out of band to look at, and he had to get it stood up, had to look at the value statement. He had to make a presentation, and I just just relax. I'm going to get you through this. I'm going to send you PowerPoint. I'm going to give you, value statements. I'm going to give you, here's where you click to show the network engineers and give them that aha moment, right? And so, we actually, in our arsenal of secret toolkit, the SCs and on my team, we're ready to advise our customers in that step. We're not just like an answer question and get out of there. It ends when you get past the field test for us. And you've survived that whole process, and everybody's happy.
Gotcha. Well, that's good to
that
hear.
That contractor's never going to forget you.
Yeah.
He won't, and maybe
for providing that value.
Right.
He'll be in charge or something, or not. I don't. I just like helping them. That's right. And I've been there. I've been that new guy, right? I think back as someone. As you grow up in the position in the career, you got to look back and say, "Wow, that guy really helped me out more." I really appreciate him being that patient. I must have just pestered him with a million questions. And, when you get that person doing that with you, you're like, it really makes you be more patient with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're not meant to be mentors, right? We're not like, I'm going to be a network engineer, CCIE, whatever it is. It's like, it's not easy to be a mentor. It's not a natural skill, but I always try to think about when I was that person.
Mm-hmm.
Those people are saints.
Yeah.
You see how busy everybody is in their job, but when you have somebody take the time out to to work with you. There's no way I would have been able to succeed without those people taking me under their wing. Like, all right, new guy with all the questions, come on over. Because I had a lot of questions. I still do. How much Linux do I need to know on these OpenGear? And the reason I'm asking is when I got my first console server, you had to get in there and bang around in Linux. And that's how I learned Linux, is getting my home lab console server set up. But it sounds like what you have, it's like self-provision, right? Like reaches out to LTE, magic happens, and poof. There, you just like, are they really that smart that I ship it out, it connects to LTE, and then somebody just has to connect the console port to my, right? Like boop. It sounds wonderful.
There is.
Boop.
It's almost plug and go. There is 2 or 3 commands you would have to get to the box at some point somewhere, because unless you have us pre-configure it for you, you got to put in an APN. You're going to get a SIM card from your carrier. You don't want us to know your APN, or anybody to know your APN. Mm-hmm. So there's just some things that have to be put on the appliance. But the answer to the Linux question is really, you only need to know as much as you want to know. You need the Linux component to make this thing be an amazing out-of-band box for you. But if you really want to leverage the power of Linux, it's there for you. But it's really very easy. All the devices are going to have a CLI. It's not going to be a Cisco CLI, but it's very easy to understand. It's got help. You can get in very easily, get it going on the network.
It's got the contextual help, which is nice. What's an APN? There's been a couple acronyms thrown around that I don't know.
So an APN is the code that a carrier will tell you. If you work for whatever organization, when you guys buy a carrier plan, they will all have their own APN. It's an identifier, and it's a unique name for your cell plan, and you put that in. So when you show up, you got to have the right. It's called an IMEI. You got to have the right APN and the right SIM card. They all come together, and everybody. There are some public, commonly used APNs, but most organizations, for security wise, they'll have their own APNs.
It's like the keys to the cellular kingdom, kind of. Is that how you?
Secret code, yeah.
Yeah. Did you say TPM earlier, or am I getting them mixed up? Is that a thing?
I'm sorry to throw around a lot of.
No, it's okay.
An acronym. It's called a Trusted Platform Module, and this is common in the industry: servers, routers, switches, and now we've got it in out-of-band devices. It's just a way to, number one, have a signed key on your OS. So you put part of the key in the TPM chip that no one can ever get to. Only the manufacturer has access to that area. You have a key you have another side of the key in your OS. So when it boots up, is that the correct OS, or did some bad guy grab my device in UPS, open it up, put a bad OS on there, and then tape it up and ship it back to my site? So and if someone gets it and they get that key and they start pushing in it, and you've got your Arista config on there. You don't want them to get that config off of the chip.
It's like a private key kind of authentication.
Yeah. It's a trusted vault for your OS and for your configs.
So how does the NSA get around that when they get the
hold up a minute.
when they break
Andy's
into the
just kidding.
When they break into the trucks and put in their spy chips. No, I'm just kidding. I do have a real So what I'm a network engineer, so in my mind only routers and switches connect to these things, but you mentioned like ILO earlier, which got me thinking. I mean, there's more than just routers and switches that can connect to these things? Is that an accurate statement? Like, are servers ILO ports connected to these?
They could be, yeah. Network engineers are more likely to need a management interface like a Palo Alto. For some reason, a lot of network engineers, that's one of the few times they'll go into a GUI. That has a CLI. I don't know why they don't go to it, but some of them say, I have just purchased a new device and it only has an HTTPS management interface. What do I do? Like, this is especially true in SD-WAN. It's a great little box. You just plug it in, boom, it connects back to the mothership. Where's the CLI? You'll move it around. There's no console port on that thing. So the network engineer says, what do I do now? And what we've done is, in our central management, we discover those targets. We allow you to get access to it. We can also So what happens is there's this whole VPN network infrastructure between the central management and all the console servers. So a lot of customers realize, wait, I have my own management network. So you can use that to get yourself to a remote site right on that local LAN and browse for that thing during an outage. So yeah, not everything is serial, right? So some of it is changing. There are devices now that are only IP-based access. Yeah, and that's a big area of growth for us. We've got an automation gateway where there's actually suddenly now I have an HTTPS link in Lighthouse for a device that it doesn't have a serial port on it. And for us, that's really kind of weird, but it's awesome too, because we would talk to customers and they'd say, I got 90% of my stuff in OpenGear, and this other 10 is just, I can't because it doesn't have a serial port. And now there's just no exception. It's like all of it for the network here.
Okay. So it'll work
Very
with
cool.
like IMM and iDRAC and that kind of stuff. Is that what you're getting at? Like you can open up a web page to that?
Yeah. It'll open up a web page for you, and it gets you there.
Awesome, Dan. Well, we've covered an awful lot about out-of-band management and OpenGear. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to touch on before we wrap this up?
No, just I appreciate the chance to talk with you guys and your community. I love the fact that we can talk and share stories with new engineers and maybe senior engineers looking to maybe move into management. We could probably do a whole episode on that.
There you go.
You know, the involuntary managers, but I do appreciate so you guys know what I'm talking about there, whoever you are, you're one of those. So I do appreciate the chance to talk with you guys. It's always a blast to listen to you. It's fun to be on with you talking, and do appreciate the chance.
I really want to thank
Dan.
you, Dan, man. This has been, the fact that you and your company, I want to thank you and I want to thank our community, right? So we haven't been doing this that long, and the fact that we've grown to a point where a vendor has approached us and says, hey, we like what you're doing. We want to contribute. I want to thank the community for that, because if nobody was listening, you guys, wouldn't bother. Right? And then the fact that you and your company have, approached us, and it's just been such a nice partnership so far. I was nervous about how we were going to do this, and this has just been such an educational, session for me personally, and I know our fans too. It's just, you've been a pleasure. So thank you to you and your team and your folks at OpenGear. This has really been great.
Yeah, you're certainly welcome.
Thanks for letting us do this in this format, because I don't want to speak for the rest of the guys, but I feel like this was just a normal show.
Right.
We've learned
yeah.
a lot,
Yeah.
but we didn't have to really change the format, so we really appreciate that, Dan. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm surprised the time flew fast.
It always does. when you have-
And we didn't have to go to puppets very often.
We didn't.
Let me use a puppet to explain this. Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate that. We'll get socks all around for everybody.
Hey, yeah, there you go.
Thank you for your time, Dan.
Oh my gosh.
I love out-of-band.
For those listening, Andy is now doing a sock puppet show.
Have a drink.
Okay. All right. Well, Dan, thank you so much. Big thank you to OpenGear, our sponsor for this episode. You always remember your first, and OpenGear is our very first sponsor. Truly appreciate it. This has been, as the others have said, a fantastic partnership. Thank you so much, and I'm sure we will talk to you again. You've been a great guest, and you certainly brought a wealth of knowledge, and there's certainly more in there that I'm interested in tapping into, so I'd be more than happy to welcome you back for another episode so we can get the rest of that out of there and to our listeners.
Or maybe if we do like a demo, that'd be kind of cool.
I would look forward to any of that. Yeah. Demo rack here. Yeah. I would absolutely look forward to that.
Excellent. And I know that we've been talking to Sarah from the marketing team at OpenGear, and we are definitely working on some fun giveaways. She's got some mock-ups coming our way that we can look at and approve. And as soon as we get those in her hands, ready to ship, we will do some giveaways via our social media accounts. So keep an eye out for those.
Yeah. That's another great part of the sponsorship, right? And partnership is OpenGear wanted to help our community members. Like what they asked us what they need, and so we got some giveaways coming, sponsored by OpenGear, which is great.
Yep.
Got some great stuff. Got some books coming. Got some good swag. It's gonna be great.
I'm excited.
So
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
I feel like I say that at the end of almost every episode. I'm just pumped. This is so fun. I'm just having fun, man.
It's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much again, Dan, and to OpenGear. If you're thinking about an out-of-band solution, please give OpenGear a shot and have a chat with Dan.
Yeah,
maybe.
and to that, Dan, are you on social media? Are you on LinkedIn? Do you email? Like, what do you got?
I'm on LinkedIn. You can just send a note to sales at OpenGear and I'll see that. But yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. You can grab me there and connect with me. I love connecting with network engineers. Got a lot of connections over the years and a good community of my own going. So anybody feel free to reach out to me that way.
Awesome. We'll definitely put links to OpenGear, of course, and your LinkedIn into our show notes so people can find that easily.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. Maybe I need a Discord handle.
Hey, there you go.
OpenGear Dan.
OpenGear Dan. I like it.
All right. Well, thank you very much to Dan and OpenGear, and thanks for joining us. Have a great night.
Don't let those darn cats ruin your network.
See ya.
Hey everyone, this is AJ. If you like what you heard today, then make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcatcher. Smash that bell icon to get notified of all of our future episodes. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Art of NetEng. That's Art of NetEng. You can also find us on the web at artofnetworkengineering.com, where we post all of our show notes. You can read blog articles from the co-hosts and guests, and also a lot more news and info from the networking world. Thanks for listening.